What if I told you there's a simple piece of math that claims it can predict whether a marriage will succeed or fail? Today, we're going to dig into this fascinating and, let's be honest, kind of controversial formula for love.
It sounds a little unbelievable, right? I mean, can all the complexities of love, partnership, and conflict really get boiled down to a single calculation? Well, that's the exact question we're going to unpack. And here it is. This is the formula in all its deceptive simplicity. Back in the 1970s, researchers called it an improper rule. The idea is simple. Take how often a couple has sex and just subtract how often they argue. A positive number suggests things are stable, while a negative number, well, that could spell trouble. And the initial evidence for this was surprisingly strong. A 1976 study by Howard and Dawes found that among 30 happily married couples, only 2 had a negative score. But get this, for the unhappy couples, a full 12 of them argued more than they had sex. And the wildest part? This super simple rule often did a better job predicting marital happiness than the judgments of trained professionals. The evidence gets even stronger. In 1977, a study by Thornton had couples actually track their own interactions. And when they did this, the correlation between that sex minus quarrel score and how happy they said they were in their marriage just skyrocketed to 0.81. Now, for anyone who isn't a stats nerd, let me tell you, that is a remarkably high number. It was a huge signal that this little formula was really onto something big.
So, okay, we have pretty good evidence that this simple formula works. But that's not the whole story. The why behind it? I mean, why would this specific, almost crude measurement be so predictive? That remained a total mystery for decades. To answer that, we need to jump way forward to a 2021 paper that provides a really powerful explanation.
So, this 2021 paper from Da Silva and Cordero, it grounds the whole formula in a mix of evolutionary psychology and, believe it or not, family economics. They basically argue that marriage isn't just about romance. At its very core, it's a kind of fundamental evolutionary bargain. So the theory starts with this basic conflict in our priorities, something shaped by evolution. From a reproductive standpoint, men have a lower investment per child, so their strategy tends to prioritize sexual access. But for women, with a much higher biological investment, we're talking pregnancy, lactation, the whole deal, their strategy tends to prioritize securing resources to support all that. And right there, you have this natural mismatch in what each partner values most. Now, here's where it gets really cool. Economists can actually take this conflict and model it. They treat the marriage like this tiny two-person economy, where sex and resources are the goods being exchanged. And this is where things get really interesting. To build this model, the researchers use a key concept called Leontief preferences. Don't worry about the name. All it really means is that for both partners' goals, sex and resources are perfect complements. It's like a car and gas. For the husband, sexual access is less valuable without resources to support a family. For the wife, resources are less valuable without a committed partner. One is kind of useless without the other. And this is how economists visualize that whole bargain. These diagrams are called Edgeworth boxes, and they map out each partner's preferences. Think of it like a map of satisfaction. On the left, you see those red lines crossing at the corners. Those are the extreme, unstable situations that lead to conflict. But on the right, that blue line shows the sweet spot, the stable compromise, or the economic equilibrium that a couple can reach through bargaining. Let's just focus on that unstable left box for a moment. Up at the top corner, the husband gets all the sexual access he wants, but it's way more than the wife desires for the level of resources being provided. That's unstable. Down at the bottom corner, there's no sex, which is completely unacceptable to the husband, also unstable. The model proposes that these mismatched situations are the very source of the quarrels in our formula. So, if those extremes are what cause the fights, how does a couple find stability? Well, they have to find a balance. They have to land on an equilibrium point that satisfies both of them just enough. And that is the key to avoiding conflict. The stable bargain, which is what we see in that right-hand diagram, looks something like this. The model suggests the wife holds monopoly power because, biologically, she is the sole supplier of reproductive access. So the resulting compromise involves less sex than the husband ideally wants, but, and this is key, in exchange, the wife receives a greater share of the resources. The model's specific calculation even says she gets 2/3 of the money.
In essence, the husband pays for sexual access with resources, and it's this trade-off that creates a stable peace.
So that's the theory. It's a really neat economic model, but does it actually hold up in the real world? The researchers conducted a survey to find out, and the results, well, they were fascinating.
Okay, now look at this. When asked if they had more sex or more fights, wives in almost every single age group reported more sex. But there was this one fascinating exception: women aged 25 to 34. The theory suggests this is the age where women are at their peak mating market value, meaning they have the most alternative options outside the marriage. So according to the model, these quarrels might actually be an unconscious tool to enforce their bargaining power and make sure that economic trade-off stays in their favor.
And this brings us right to the core conclusion of the paper. It says, quarrels in marriage result from the mismatch between a given allocation of sex and resources and the evolutionarily set preferences of the husband and wife. In other words, these fights aren't just random disagreements. They are a symptom of a fundamental economic mismatch, a sign that what's happening in the marriage is out of sync with those deep-seated evolutionary preferences.
Which brings us full circle. That lovemaking minus quarrels formula, it isn't magic. It's a simple, elegant proxy. It's just a quick and dirty way to measure whether that complex, evolutionary, and economic bargain at the very heart of the marriage is in a stable, functioning balance.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question. Is it possible that what we call marital stability has less to do with the unpredictable nature of romance and a whole lot more to do with the predictable principles of a well-negotiated economic deal?